Okay, we're back. And we have budget enhancement number 4, the seasonal facility attendance. Could I have a mover and a seconder to put that on the table, please? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Greenfield, thank you. And open that up for discussion. Questions of staff? Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and to staff. Is this something that can be paid for out of the increased parking revenue that we think we may get, or is that putting the cart before the horse?
Through you, Madam Mayor, this kind of goes back to that circular conversation we had when you were considering whether to implement the paid parking at more locations. Yes, this is covered by the revenue that we will get from the paid parking. However, that revenue has already been budgeted for in the base budget. So this is still an additional cost, and that's just because of the way we have to do it. So in effect, that additional revenue has lowered the other tax increase, and we need to top that up with these additional staff, and that applies for the enforcement staff as well.
Okay, anything further? Councillor Kentner.
I hate to weigh in on everything, but I just don't think there's maybe any cheaper way that we can support our tourist industry than with clean washrooms. So on that basis, I would be inclined to vote for this.
Okay. Anything? I'm not seeing any other hands here. Shall I call the question? For $36,460, a seasonal, sorry, $20,080. Sorry, got ahead of myself. For seasonal facility attendance. All in favor of this enhancement going forward? And that is carried. The next one is the seasonal municipal enforcement for $36,460. And I need a mover and a seconder to put that on the table, please. Councillor or Deputy Mayor again, thank you. And Councillor Vickers. Okay. Comments for staff on that one? Again, seasonal municipal enforcement officers. Councillor Kentner.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship, I'm wondering if has anybody spoken to our counterparts in Georgian Bluffs and what kind of an experience they're having using a security firm for bylaw enforcement? I would think I would really like to see us maybe staff have a good conversation with Georgian Bluffs and find out whether they think this is working well or not. Personally, I feel that if there are any nasty confrontations, I'd rather it be with somebody that we hired than with a security firm we hired. But on the other hand, this is a chunk of change, and I'm not sure that we're going to see the benefit from it.
Over to you, Matt.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mayor Columbus, I'm going to ask on Rob's behalf, as he probably doesn't know some of the history on this one. We have actually attempted to do that before, using a security company to do a lot of the Memorial Park patrols. We did that, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, and we found that it really wasn't successful. And Councillor Kent, your comment about the confrontation with people that we've employed and trained is different from a security company is one of those reasons. What you find when you have people come in on a security company contract is that they don't know the bylaws as well as our staff would do, because they're not dealing with them day in, day out. We don't have the same people attending every single time because it's just whoever from the company is available that weekend or that day. And we found that some of the paperwork and things wasn't necessarily the greatest when we were trying to follow up on it. The other thing is that it wouldn't actually save us any money, because the hourly rate for a security company is more than the hourly rate for a junior bylaw officer on a seasonal contract, just because they have to pay those staff members that wage as well, and then the company wants to make some profit on top. So I definitely think that hiring our own staff for this one is a better option.
Thanks for that, Matt. As I recall the conversation when we were thinking about this originally, the fact that the bylaw enforcement officers were also ambassadors within the parks, and as their role was approaching folks who perhaps needed more education with the rules and the bylaws and the parking attendants and so on. So I saw this as a real advantage from a tourism perspective as well.
I think, Madam Mayor, you're probably right there. Holly is with us, so I might ask her to come on and talk about that aspect of the role, because that is certainly something that we get from our staff as opposed to a consultant.
That's right. Welcome, Holly.
Welcome, Your Worship, and Deputy Mayor and councillors. I think that is exactly what happened. I've always applied the 4E principle, and the key is to engage, explain, educate, and then enforce. And by doing that, we are seen as the ambassadors. We do enforce the law, and without enforcing the certain laws, such as the parking control bylaw, people will not make the payment for the paying of the parking, or they'll allow their dogs to run at large. By being visible, we reduced our call demand with the animal control from 2019 to 2021. Our calls used to be around 250 in 2019, and they've dropped to 127. And I really do credit that to the team that I have brought forward for the past 2 years, and being visible and being able to communicate to the public and provide that professional and personal interaction.
Thank you for that, Holly. Councillor Greenfield and Councillor Bartley.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship, and thank you, Ms. Hines. I agree 100%. I see these two people as more than bylaw enforcement officers. They're customer service reps. They're a part of the whole parcel. They need to be advocates for our municipality and our facilities and our recreational advantages. I think it's going to be maybe a bit of a challenge to select the correct two, because again, they're going to have to be really refined in the public relations area, but they can be a huge asset that we can't just measure in direct dollars and cents. So no, I'm totally in favor of having these officers put in place for the term. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greenfield and Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last year, I actually went looking for some of these officers, and I did meet them a couple of times. They are more than just a bylaw officer. They are an ambassador for the municipality. These people were professional. They were polite, but professional. And I'm all for this. And Holly, I hope you can do as good with the people this year as you did last year. Thank you.
Okay, anything further, Council? No, I'll call the question. All in favor of this enhancement? That is carried too. Moving on to number 6, the additional enforcement vehicle. Need a mover and a seconder, please, to put that on the table. Councillor Bartley, Councillor Vickers, thank you. Any comments or questions for staff on that? That is a value of $9,525. Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Kentner.
Thanks, Your Worship. And I think this one is fairly simple. We've just agreed to hire the bylaw officers so that they have to have a vehicle. There's no way around that.
Yeah.
My question, I guess, is for Jessica, though, just looking at the leasing amount. Can you just explain to us, Jessica, a little bit? I mean, is that lease amount based on a full list price of a vehicle, or just how is that determined?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes is the answer, the easy answer. We're actually basing it off of the equivalent vehicle which bylaw utilizes now, which we just got through going through enterprise. So it's essentially a second of the same type of vehicle. So that's how the pricing was determined. It would just be added to our fleet program, just like any other vehicle would.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further? Then, sorry, Councillor Kentner.
Yes, and if I may, I think that Councillor Bartley was also looking to speak to this. And anyway, I am not in favor of this. On the one hand, the report says that you don't want enforcement officers acting alone. And on the other hand, you want each of them to have their own vehicle. So we've got numerous appropriate vehicles appropriately equipped that are parked on the weekends. And alternatively, the building inspector's vehicle is also parked on the weekend. Just put a radio in it. And we have bicycles, and the area that is being surveillanced for paid parking is in easy bicycle distance from Memorial Park to the harbor. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Councillor Kentner, I don't think this vehicle's for the two people we just hired. They are on bicycles. This is for our second bylaw officer. And if we have a second bylaw officer without a vehicle, we don't need a second bylaw officer. I don't want them sitting in the office. I want them out doing their job. I think if we're going to have two bylaw officers full-time, we have to have this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bartley. Councillor Kentner, back to you.
Thank you, Councillor Bartley. I certainly understand that. I thought this was largely for weekend work.
No.
Uh,
Matt?
Through you, Madam Mayor. It's the 7-day-a-week work in essence, especially in the summer months. But no, as Councillor Bartley says, we have two full-time officers, a manager and an officer. Right now, they share one vehicle, which means that no more than one person can ever be out actually doing an inspection or doing a patrol. So they need to, it will be a much better service to the community if we can have two people out and about at the same time. And just with regard to the lone working comment, I don't think when we talk about we shouldn't only have one person working, it means we shouldn't only have one person in a vehicle. It means that we shouldn't only have one person working at the same time. If we've got two people working in two vehicles, then they're in contact with each other. So we know where people are. They've got access to communicate with each other if they come into difficulties and so on. And that's been the issue with the summer staff at times over the years, is that we had somebody working at 10 o'clock at night and there was nobody else working. And so they had no easy emergency contact. It doesn't necessarily mean they'll always be together.
Thank you for that. Councillor Greenfield, and then Councillor Bell.
Thanks again, Your Worship. This vehicle, is it going to be a half-ton truck? Is it going to be a large SUV? Could it be a small electric vehicle?
So as the report says, it'll be a large SUV, and the reason for that is it's got to be able to pick up large dogs. So it really can't be a small compact car, and that's part of the problem that we have now, which is we've been using the Toyota Corolla that the municipalities had for some years as a summer vehicle, and you certainly can't put an animal in a Toyota Corolla's trunk. So that's why it'll have to be an SUV, and that it'll match exactly the vehicle that they have right now.
And Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we have two part-time officers, but we're going to have a full-time lease. So can we opt in or opt out? I wouldn't think we'd be able to opt out of the lease once we get the vehicle equipped the way we want. So then that leads me to ask, we get this vehicle and then the two personnel are no longer with us and we're paying for a lease. So I need some comment on that, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we don't have 2 part-time officers. We have 2 full-time officers year-round, and in the summer we have, following your recent approval, 3 full-time seasonal officers. So all year round we have 2 officers, and as I've said, right now they share a vehicle. That is not very productive.
Right. Any further comments? Now call the question. All in favor of this enhancement going forward? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is carried. South Georgian Bay Tourism is enhancement number 7. And the price tag on that is $7,000. The mover and seconder, please to put that on the table. Councillor Greenfield, Councillor Bartley, thank you. Comments or questions for staff? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. And my question on this one, the difference, the $7,000, I gather from the report that most of that is to go so that businesses can have a free registration for the Southern Georgian Bay Tourism. And I know that the expectation is that there will be more businesses take advantage of that this year than last, but it just seems like a large price tag for that alone. So I'm wondering what other additional promotion or advantage is there to us increasing this amount, and just what kind of measurables are they? Don't really hear very much from Southern Georgian Bay Council. I'm just wondering a little bit more about what they really do for us.
Thank you, through your worship. Just to explain, and I'll have Janet maybe get into more detail because she actually sits on the board of the Southern Georgian Bay, probably has more in-depth knowledge about it. But they changed their governance model a few years back from a operator-led organization to a municipality-led destination marketing organization. And what that did by doing that was that it provided more opportunity for your local businesses to join at no cost. Prior to that, businesses would have to pay, and Meaford actually had very few businesses, and that has grown over the years when they changed this business model. Through their discussions, they've asked to increase the municipal contribution from 15,000 to 22,000. Thus, the additional 7,000 in increased services, basically to provide the additional services, but at the same time providing free services to our local businesses to be part of that greater organization, which is a significant benefit to attracting people to the area. Once they're here, we look to work with the chamber in treating our guests, our visitors once they're here. And as we just talked about, our law enforcement officers, they're there to help once people are here, but really the DMO helps, together with Grey County as well, helps to get them here and being part of that organization. They did a presentation speaking to that need to increase to cover their costs from 15,000. That's being asked of all of the member municipalities from Wasaga Beach, Clearview through to Meaford.
Thank you for that, Rob. Councillor Bartley?
Thank you, Rob, but it really didn't answer the question. What do they do for us? I don't see any pamphlets coming out. What do they do for us? And what does a member, as a free member, what do they get out of this?
Oh, Janet.
Madam Mayor, if I can answer that.
Please, welcome, Janet.
Hello, good afternoon. So South Georgian Bay Tourism, as Rob had mentioned, there's 5 municipalities that are part of this. That includes Collingwood, Town of Blue Mountains, Wasaga Beach, Clearview, and ourselves. And it looks at, we're not into boundaries, it's about all of South Georgian Bay. And as a destination marketing organization, they look at marketing experiences and tourism for the entire area. So they actually spend the board of directors and the staff member that they have spend a great amount of time reaching out to businesses to have them be members of it, and then also spreading as far as what they provide out to the community, out to the greater, a lot of the area that they're reaching out to is our GTA area and beyond, for people coming up and visiting. So what we get out of that from the standpoint of the municipality is that they are supporting our local businesses and tourism. And one of the biggest priorities that we have been building is having more of the businesses being part of that so that they can be promoted. So if you are on the South Georgian Bay Tourism website, like they send out e-blasts, they prepare videos, they send out messaging, and they really try to connect with the businesses to get the information out there. With COVID, what they did as a strategy, because they really are a membership-based organization, so memberships cover the cost for operations. Certainly what the municipalities provide, which we've provided $15,000 in funding over the last 4 years as foundational funding, like the other municipalities, to help in the operational costs. And when COVID hit, a lot of those organized tourism, as we all know, the tourism sector was really devastated by COVID. And being able to have memberships and cover those fees became a challenge. So what the organization did is said, we're going to offer free membership to try to support the businesses can still be marketed and we can still get the word out. And that's where you're seeing that this cost is coming in, is that in order to cover that, businesses don't have to pay for that membership. And that's a basic membership. So basic membership is that we've got your name, we've got your location, we can actually promote that. And to cover that difference in costs, that's where this additional cost is coming in from the municipalities to try to support that operational need. So hopefully that answers the question. I know that's a bit long-winded.
Thank you, Janet. Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was able to attend the Chamber of Commerce meeting last Thursday morning, and this was one of the items that the good folks around the chamber table requested that council did support. They all thought it was very important for our municipality to be a part of this organization. They thought it was going to be a benefit to their local businesses. And on the strength of that and the strength of their opinions, I'm quite willing to support that we get involved with this expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greenfield. Anything further? Councillor Bartley.
I'm sorry to beat a dead horse, but I still don't. Do they put flyers out? Do they put Facebook out? I still don't know what they do.
Yeah.
Over to you, Rob.
Yeah, through your worship. So they do have quite a strong digital presence and promote a lot of stuff in the GTA. In addition, they produce the See and Do guide, I think it's called, which helps promote all of the different member municipalities and businesses in those municipalities, that's distributed at various tourist information offices throughout the province, through different organizations. So those are the two key things that I think they help promote and do from a promotional point of view. Yeah.
Over to you, Janet.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the big things that you'll see is the See and Do guide that they put together. That's a printed guide that goes out. You'll even see it here locally, like it's distributed through our Apple in the summer and in our different tourism locations and you'll see it in businesses across the South Georgian Bay area. And one of the big draws for that one too is that it's got a great map in it for people to be able to utilize and see all the different experiences that they can get into. It also, one of the things that South Georgian Bay is really good at producing that, and they are very strong digital presence, and they have very strong apps as well, tourism apps, so that if you come into the area and you want to know how to move around and that they support those applications for that. But they're also really good at cross promotion with businesses. So if you're coming in for an experience that you want to visit cideries across, they've got that cross promotion, and they're working with businesses to also cross promote that if you come in for a restaurant, you also have certain connections to retail. So they're really making that strength that if someone's coming in, it's not just about one single destination. They're moving through the region and they're getting a very vast diversity of types of businesses and tourism experiences that they can enjoy.
Councillor Kantner.
Thank you, Your Worship. I feel strongly that we are part of the Southern Georgian Bay community, and we definitely benefit from the activities they do. We're at the end of the line, and we need that promotion, or people will just stay where they are in Wasaga, Collingwood, or town of Blue Mountains. I think that there's a lot of value in making people more aware of Meaford. And for 60 years, I've watched the March of the GTA to Georgian Bay. We just need them to know that Meaford is just a little farther on. So.
Mm-hmm. Anything further? I'll call the question. All in favor of the South Georgian Bay tourism increase of $7,000 in the budget? And against? That is carried. Okay, our last one then is a Georgian Trail Enhancement 8 for $37,670. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Deputy Mayor, thank you. And the seconder, please, Councillor Bell. All right. Any comments, questions, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'm very pleased to speak on this. It was myself that brought forward the request for this enhancement. Grooming the Georgian Trail is something that we've been talking about one way or another for 2 or 3 years now, and I want to really express my appreciation to Rod Willis in particular, and any staff who supported Rod in preparing this report, because it really gives us a clear indication of what the options are to make this happen. And I think if it were a different winter and we were seeing, a lot more snow events and the trail was inaccessible, I think differently about this. But recognizing that that this year the weather has been such that the trail has been quite walkable up until now, and it is the middle of January. So my suggestion on this is that we hang on to this information and move it forward to the Council of 2023 so that they can consider the possibilities for grooming the trail should they wish to do so. But as I see it right now, quite honestly, trail is quite walkable just as it is, unless there's big changes in the weather, and in any event, that's down the road.
Madam Mayor, if I could just interject there and say that whatever happens with this, if this is passed, this is an enhancement for the 2022/2023 winter. Even if you pass this today, there'll be no grooming that happens this season, because we will have to buy the vehicle, trade in our other one, etc., etc., etc. So by the time we actually were to do that, we would be past the end of the season. So this will be for the end of this year, not for now.
Thank you for that, Matt. Over to you, Rod.
Actually, thank you, Your Worship. Just on top of that too, Deputy Mayor, there's to obtain this type of these vehicles and these type of the groomers, trail groomers, and that is going to take a month or two to obtain this stuff. This type of equipment is just not readily available anymore. So if you are really looking for this to be done in the 2023 season, it should be approved in the 2022 budget.
Thank you for that, Rob. And Councillor Bartley, or sorry, Councillor Greenfield first, and then Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with the Deputy Mayor that this year, we have January now half gone, so not to worry about it for this season. But this was another item that the Chamber of Commerce thought would be an advantage for the downtown businesses. wondering, Rod, if we do decide to approve this financing for next season, there is a little spur trail off the Georgian Trail, goes down to the clay banks. Would it be groomed too? It's it's a great view from down there. Can you tell me? Have you thought about that area?
So, through your worship, Councillor Greenfield, our original plan was to groom the Georgian Trail. I completely agree. That is a great little trail that's maintained by the Conservation Authority, and we could easily, discuss this with the Conservation Authority to see if there's something that could be worked out. I don't see it taking. It's not a long section of trail, so it wouldn't add a lot of allocated hours to the grooming process.
And Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does this money add to the tax levy, or is it coming out of funds we already have inside the operating budget?
It's a tax levy.
This is an addition to the budget.
Action.
So we're not increasing the levy by 37,000 this year and then drawing it back next year?
Yes.
I don't understand, because it's not going.
So the ongoing cost is around about $5,000. Well, it's around about $6,000 a year for the maintenance, fuel, and staffing. But in effect, we'd be having a new capital project to actually purchase a utility vehicle. So yes, it will go up by 37,000 for this year, but then the cost in future years would only be 6,000.
So how do you add to the tax levy this year of 35,000 for a vehicle and then take it off next year's levy? Because once you add it to the levy, that's part of your taxes going forward.
Well, it would just become part of the capital budget going forwards.
So it's still in there, that 35,000.
Well, yes, but it wouldn't have to be. That would be council's decision at the time.
So is there a chance that that 35,000 could come out of some sort of reserve somewhere?
We don't have a reserve for this sort of equipment at this time, I don't believe.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So reading through the report, like all of you have, there was an option there to send this out for a request for proposal from somebody who may well indeed have this equipment and be able to put on a groomer behind it. And I'm just not sure how we word that right now, because if we're going to send it out for a request for proposal, which may come in far more pleasant than, in my mind, spending this kind of money on this particular piece of equipment. And it was discussed in the report, using a snowmobile and then not using a snowmobile. There's other ways of putting a drag behind a piece of equipment. I'm not in favor then of putting this year in our taxes another $37,000, and I can't support it as it's written, when in fact we are really looking into the future. I would really like this to be considered down the road, and when we do, put it out for proposal.
Okay, Councillor Bartley, and then Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was put out to the Snowmobile Club, which I do not want to open this trail to snowmobiles. And it was put out to a private contractor at $24,000 a year. So you're not saving much. But I don't want to go ahead with it this year either, but I wouldn't go with a contractor, because this vehicle can be used for the rest of the year for other things. I would do it on our own, not go out to a contractor. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I guess, do we really feel we're gaining that much? We do a little bit of hiking out on some of the Bruce trails around here, And geez, you get 2 or 3 or 4 snowshoers ahead of you, and they pretty well have the path beaten down. And I've walked along the Bruce Trail just with a pair of winter boots on, sort of thing. And down there along Georgian Trail, I can't imagine there'd be so much traffic that would the trail not be pretty well packed down the whole amount of time. Like once you had a few people out on it, it'd be pretty well there anyway. So the 35,000 for the new utility vehicle, but what about the close to $6,000 in operating costs? Like I really question, like, do we need everything in pristine shape for people to use it? Because I think the Georgian Trail does get beaten down pretty quick myself. So that's kind of the reasoning behind that I'm struggling to support this.
Thanks, Paul. I think in my days of cross-country skiing and on that trail, the biggest hurdle was the entrances into the roadways. That was always the challenge to get over. So grooming the trail to that extent would be really advantageous and to our cross-country skiers that use the trail. Rod?
One other comment. I understand what everyone is saying here. We also do have 2 municipalities next door to us as part of the Georgian Trail that are doing this. So they're providing this service. And then, you come to the Meaford portion of the trail and essentially you're stuck. So it's, this is what it has essentially has come from, as other municipalities have begun this process. Do I feel that the trail would be utilized a lot more if it was groomed? Yes, I do. So.
Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Your Worship. And yeah, certainly I agree with what Rod said. And I think to Councillor Vickers' point, my experience as a walker is that people just avoid the trail if there is a lot of snow and they can't get over the combs from the snowplow, then they just avoid it and walk on the streets. And I honestly don't see cross-country skiers on the trail. The majority of people I see are walking. So I think really we're grooming it for predominantly for walkers. And yes, certainly the other sections of the trail are groomed, and we see and hear lots of comments from people who really enjoy walking on those well cared for trails. And at some point in time, I'd certainly like to see ours done as well.
Okay, are we ready to call the question? The motion on the floor now is to remove this portion of the enhancements. That has been moved and seconded. All in favor of removing this at this time? 2, 3. Repeat. The motion on our Deputy Mayor made a motion to remove this portion, the grooming of Georgian Trail, the $37,670. Matt?
So, sorry, Madam Mayor, maybe I'm a little confused here. We had a move and a seconder to put this on the table.
Yes.
If we don't want it, we should just vote against the motion.
Okay. Correct. It's a late date. All in favor of accepting this enhancement as presented in the enhanced portion. To vote no against this takes it off the table. To vote yes for it puts it that includes that $37,000 in the enhancement budget. Say again. The motion on the floor is that we include the winter trail, Georgian Trail winter grooming in the council budget for 2022. That's $37,670. To vote yes for that includes that in the budget. To vote no against this portion takes it out of the budget. So I'll call the question again. All in favor of this enhancement in the budget? And that is lost. Well done, guys. Thank you very much. We're down to K, the draft budget approval. The Committee of the Whole directs staff to bring the final draft budget forward to the statutory public meeting on January 31st, 2022. And I have a mover and a seconder to put that on the table, please. Councillor Bell and Deputy Mayor, thank you. And by my calculation, that added $73,065 to the budget. Matt, is that correct?
That sounds correct. I don't have that number in front of me. I just wanted to sort of reinforce with council what this would mean, what the other options are. Passing the motion that's now on the floor would mean that we would have the statutory public meeting that's scheduled on December 31st and basically says that you're happy with the budget, because as we've talked about in years past, if we make significant changes after a statutory public meeting, then we have to make the changes and then go back and have another statutory meeting and so on. If you're not happy with the budget as it is right now, you have an option to replace this motion with one that says that you want council to have further conversations at a later date. But obviously, and I think that would mean that there'll be a delay in approving the budget.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Matt, not that I want to change anything in the budget, cut or add, can we on the 31st talk about where some of the funding would come from?
No, because by approving the draft budget, you would approve how it's all being funded. Because if you make changes after a statutory public meeting, then just by changing how things are funded, you're significantly changing the budget in terms of what's tax supported and what isn't.
So if something came forward from, I don't know, the library board, we can't add that?
Well, the budget at that stage would, whatever we took to the public meeting would include anything that we'd had up until that time. And if that meant that that the additions to the budget didn't have to be as significant, then that would be included in the budget, because what we'll publish is not enhancements like we've got here. It'll just be the total budget for everything.
So Matt, would you be bringing forward another report to the statutory public meeting with any additional revenue that has become apparent at that time?
Yes.
I think that's what you will be. Okay.
Yes,
so,
that'll just be a slide in Rob's presentation. Yes.
Right. So I think, Councillor Bartley, that answers your question, because there'll be more money than we will be aware then of, more money that will be coming into the revenue side, and thus reducing the tax levy. Rob?
Yeah, and we also will be updating council with regard to discussions that come out of ITFD too, because that can have implications as well. So that's another variable that we will have to account for.
Okay, thank you. So we'll be looking forward to two variables. Okay, we have Councillor Kentner, you had your hand up, and then Councillor Greenfield. No? I guess it was Councillor Greenfield I saw then.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm certainly tempted to vote in favor of the budget as it stands at the moment, but I have submitted likely 3 or 4 questions concerning the budget that I have not had answers about yet. Now, none of them are game breakers. I don't think it's going to make a big difference at all with my final vote, but I just like confirmation from staff that I am going to get answers to these questions. If necessary, I can resubmit them, but there are 3 or 4 things that I just like a little further explanation. So I'm hoping I can have that forthcoming.
Yeah, through your worship, I believe that we have responded those into the website for council's questions, where we've logged all of them. But if you can send those ones that you're haven't got, that you don't believe you have the answers to, Harley, I can check and make sure that we did. It was an oversight, and we can check that, but we can take a look.
Hey, Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And where I was going with my first thought was, is council comfortable with raising the levy a half a point? That's what we've just come up with, a half a point. Or are we going to look for a way of getting that half a point out of the budget, i.e. maybe on my little plan? Is there any appetite from council to try to get that half a point out of the roads? I know it's something I don't want to touch, but, or is council happy with adding a half a point to the levy?
Comments or questions? Councillor Bell?
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. I kind of knew, and I think all my fellow councillors kind of knew deep down inside that when we read through the enhancements with the staffing and what we want to do for customer service, I think all of us were pretty well committed to really supporting the requests, and we have. I asked a question earlier on in the meeting today about when something is listed as tax supported and it's a big dollar item. It was a bridge I was talking about, and whether we did that with the tax supported portion or whether we put it into long-term debt, what that could do, because my basic thinking on it is that we would be reducing the impact to our tax supported if we were rolling it into long-term debt. So I know that our clerk answered me on that. He said that we would ultimately be paying more in the long run. I understand that, but that is one of the areas that I was looking at. In particularly, it was the bridge that Councillor Greenfield was talking about. And I had tagged another item too, where, you know, in the printout that I got, you know, it clearly stated, well, we want to do long-term debt for this amount and so much money coming from tax supported. So that's a question that I still have as to the validity of whether we should move to do something such as that.
Valerie, this one's for you.
I hope so. Long-term debt, you have to be careful because we also have to realize that we have to watch our debt repayment limit. And that's something I'd really like to review. So as soon as you put something to long-term debt, you're going to pay for it over years to come. So in essence, you're going to pay more tax dollars later on.
Thank you for that, Steve. Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I was kind of going on the same angle that Tony was. I don't like debt. I wasn't never going to go debt. But just for an example, and hear me out, if you were to cancel the bowl bleachers, the museum shelving, the council chambers repairs, the Sydenham office door, and the Lakeview Cemetery door, that more than pays for the things we just talked about. If council was comfortable with doing that, that would take down one of the one and a half down a little bit, temporarily 1 year only. If council's happy with increase in 0.5, then that's fine also.
When you look at the 0.5, putting up, if you use that number 0.5, the proposed tax increase then would be just over 5%. And that they, using the blended rate, that would bring it up to just about 4%. Just a little over 4%, if my math is correct on that. If this goes through, just to speak to your point, Councillor Bartley, Councillor Kentner, and then Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, through your worship. I believe it's 4.19%.
Right.
So am I wrong? Is that about 0.19% above inflation at the present time? So, I mean, to be doing all that we are doing and still keeping our increase to extremely close to the present rate of inflation is probably not bad. But I would like to suggest that perhaps if I wouldn't mind coming back in another Monday meeting before the 31st to just take a second look and hear Councillor Bartley's ideas and see if amongst us we might shave this increase somewhat anyway, and still not lose track of the or lose the benefits that we have gained through the enhancements and the input of staff to the budget.
Matt, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for reference, according to StatsCan, Ontario's Canada CPI right now is on the month-to-month for November 2021 is 4.7. I'm just pulling up Ontario. Ontario is 5% even in November. So Councillor Kent, you're pretty bang on there. The comment I'll make is a comment that Council's heard many times before. Most of those projects that Councillor Bartley just referenced were under the 0.5% facility levy increase. If we try and save 75,000 from that, then you're basically not increasing the facility levy this year. And please remember that last year you decreased the facility levy because you took out the arena parking lot repaving. And so that would mean that for over the last 2 years, we've actually gone backwards to probably 2018 levels rather than adding any money at all.
Sorry, Councillor Vickers, you were next, and then Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Steve, I would be interested in listening to your proposal on the Ford Ave. And maybe rolling back the roads portion more than the ones you just talked about. And I don't know whether staff understands, and I would like to hear their opinion on whether there's any long-term issues. Is there something else going on with? And do I have the avenue right? Ford Avenue, Steve? No, Ford Ave. What avenue were you talking about?
Through the mayor, may I answer?
Please go ahead.
Well, you could either go with the facilities number or you can go with the roads number. Roadside safety at 60K, Algonquin Drive at 20K, and Lakeshore Drive at 15K out of the roadside. But I'm not interested in prolonging the process into another meeting because it throws a loop into everything. I'd either like to accept the budget tonight or talk about cutting into the roads 0.1%. I know it's a bad idea. I know better than anybody it's a bad idea. But I'm just trying to grasp at straws here.
Can Jess, she's up here now, Your Worship, like, can
Yes.
she make
Yeah, please go ahead, Jesse.
Through you, Madam Chair, I feel like we can do anything that anyone wants to do. Some of the things that were listed there, like roadside safety devices, we're very far behind on replacing existing infrastructure as it pertains to roadside safety devices. I'm not saying no, I'm just saying that we just started doing that last year, and I feel like we do, like the locations that are suggested are definitely in need. I don't know that there's like an easy item that I could say would easily fix all of those things, but I'm not saying that none of those could change. Like you were talking about Lakeshore, that's engineering. So we're looking at engineering that work next year. So it's not necessarily a construction project. I forget what else you listed now. I apologize.
Well, there's several things, but there was a Algonquin Drive project at 20K and the Lakeshore Drive at 15K, which was over and above something else. But what I'm running into here is a ball of wax maybe I shouldn't open, and I should just retract my statements.
I think all questions are fair. But I think we put forward the projects for this year under that, under that budgeting that really need to happen. And I feel like putting things off even for a year puts us in a tough spot. Just because, again, like we talked about with bridges, that we just end up having to try to fit more into another year, right? And we are in a tough spot with some of those projects anyway, but I don't know that there's an easy answer.
Okay, Councillor Vickers.
And Councillor Bartley, I wouldn't feel bad trying to find a few savings here and there. So I can appreciate Jess's comments, and Steve, I appreciate you putting forward those comments and at least letting us look at it and have a bit of a look at it. So my comments, there's I wouldn't feel bad, Steve, if I were you.
One other thing, through you, Madam Chair, sorry, just when you're thinking about it all, I was reminded that the Lakeshore and Algonquin are joint infrastructure projects. So that's something to consider as well. If we don't do the road component, then it doesn't make sense to do the underground component as well. So that's just something, food for thought. We're trying really hard to coordinate those more to save money. And that would definitely maybe not allow for one or the other to happen.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Your Worship, thank you. And yes, Councillor Bartley, I certainly appreciate your attempts here as well. And I think it's tough for this council because it's, we've been able to get other years our budget in at a lower number than this, but I've been through it several times and I know you all have, and it just doesn't seem this year that there's anything or very little that we can even consider removing. There's no synthetic ice. It's just a really solid, well put together budget, and I'm inclined to just go forward with it as it is, and hope that through the next couple of weeks that we will see some additional savings if we're lucky, and then we can get it down below that 4% number.
Okay. Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks again, Your Worship, and I don't want to prolong this, but the past few years we've had 2 full days to sit down around the table, person to person, and discuss the budget. And I guess I can't help but thinking in the back of my mind, why can't we put this off till January 24th for another budget meeting? I'm thinking there's some uncertainty here this evening. It is evening. And maybe there'll be some advantage that we may come back to the very same numbers we have, but I'm wondering if council would feel more satisfied if they had a few more days to go over these numbers again, maybe come up with some ideas. And I just don't want to misrepresent our taxpayers' dollars. We need to seriously consider this. As I said a few minutes ago, I can go ahead with this, but I'm just a little worried that maybe there's a bit more to discuss.
Thank you, Councillor Greenfield. I'm not seeing any further hands on this. Councillor Bell.
Thanks again, Madam Mayor and everyone. When I suggested before Christmas and New Year's that we think about the aggressiveness that we have been with 1.1 and 0.5, it was way before I knew where we were coming in. And now tonight, we're really looking for a 0.5%, more or less, that we have enhanced. And if we can come up with a savings, as Councillor Greenfield has said, of $75,000, $80,000, we're right where I was feeling really, really comfortable. And so I would support Councillor Greenfield's motion to have another look at this, get refreshed, look through it, and now we know that really what we're going to try and save them, $75,000, $80,000 somewhere, and come back at it and be right where we were when I was very pleased with our opening remarks this afternoon. So I would support us stepping back and having another look at it, and then hopefully we can come up with a savings somewhere that adds up to the number I've mentioned, and we would be under that. We wouldn't hit 5%. And I've got to say this: there's been ratepayers that have come to me, and I don't know whether they approach my fellow councillors or not. Some of them have said this. They have said that the aggressiveness and the tax increases that they have been enduring for this period of time, they do not believe that it is sustainable moving into the future. And that is something that I've listened to. We keep asking for more and for more. And there's those things that have been justified in the reports that we've read. And I understand where they're all coming from. And yet we are faced with this percentile. And so I would support coming back on the 24th. And thank you again.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Over to you, Matt.
So, Madam Mayor, I think I've just heard a motion moved by Councillor Greenfield and seconded by Councillor Bell that says that we should replace the main motion with direct staff to hold an additional budget meeting on January 24th, prior to the statutory public meeting.
Well, I heard that. I didn't hear it in the form of a motion, but Councillor Greenfield, is that your intention?
Yes.
Prior to January 31st?
So on January 24th.
Okay. All right. And you are willing to second that, Councillor Bell?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this? Councillor Bartley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the extra opportunity to maybe cut something out of the budget, but I doubt that anything could come from my chair. The things that I've brought forward are the only things I could find in there that I did not want to touch. So if you want to go on the 24th, that's fine, but I don't think I could bring anything else to the table other than what I've just said, because I've went through it times and I don't see anything that's cuttable. That's only my personal view, but I welcome the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I guess it's a sobering thought. We've just heard here that the CPI, the Canada CPI, is at 4.7% inflation, and the Ontario inflation rate is at 5%. When you put that in the context, and granted, it's a time of year, when you put that in the context of what we've been able to do today with the budget, to come in with the enhancements that have been decided upon, approved, and with a calculation, our calculation, Councillor Kentner, I think you agreed with my figure, which was just over 4.19%, with a blended rate, with the council coming in at 2.88%. So I think we need to keep that in perspective as well. It is under 5. It is inflation is rampant. We know that, and with the budget as presented has been very, very much approved and appreciated. All of the comments from everyone and the contribution from all of council going forward, all very valid comments and very valid concerns. But we have to deal with the realities that we're facing from the financial perspective here. Councillor Bartley, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to do an FYI to the council members. And Rob, maybe you could tell me, or Matt could tell me if I'm wrong, but as it stands, Grey Highlands has accepted a 6.67% increase. West Grey is coming in at around 9%. Chatsworth and Georgian Bluffs haven't even started the process yet, but the increases that we would be the lowest so far that's accepted, other than South Bruce.
Yeah. So having said all of that, are we ready to call the question on the motion to have hold another budget meeting on January 24th? I will call the question. All in favor of that? 2, 3, those against? And that is lost. So we go back then to the original motion, the recommendation that Committee of the Whole direct staff to bring the final draft budget forward to the statutory public meeting on January 31st, 2022. All in favor of this motion going forward? And that is, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing a hand. In favor? Thank you, that is carried. All right, let's move on then to delegated authority. Any comments or questions for that memo coming forward before council? Seeing none, this will be approved. Council has received this delegated authority report. And council directions for the 2021 Q4. That's a second memo that we need to accept. Councillor Kentner, do you have a comment?
I do, thank you, Your Worship. A few of these directions date back to 2014 and 2017 and 18. I think we need a sunset clause so that the incoming council doesn't shake its head and wonder why it's dealing with directions 2 councils removed from it. I know there are some directions that will be satisfied through things like the Transportation Master Plan and the official plan review, but I'd like to see this report shortened up for future councils, and we'll be bringing a motion or a notice of motion in a few minutes here to deal with that.
Okay. All right, thank you. Then we will move right into our updates, and with County Council being first off the mark. Over to you, Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. County Council did meet on January the 13th. That was a virtual meeting, and as we are here, we'll be meeting via Zoom for a while, I think. Dr. Era was in attendance and spoke to our current pandemic situation in Grey Bruce. To quote Dr. Era, he said that our COVID numbers are skyrocketing. Our health unit is shifting from a focus on containment of the virus to an attempt to slow the progress of the Omicron variant. Grey Bruce is focused on tracing just in high-risk settings and has switched to text messaging contacts, ongoing communications to the public, and a continued emphasis on getting vaccinated. We had, as of Thursday, 10 outbreaks in long-term care settings, and Dr. Era feels reaching herd immunity, which would be 90 to 95% vaccination rates, is out of the cards for now. He did suggest, though, that the endemic phase is approaching, and he was clear in his comment that every pandemic does have an end. Committee of the Whole began with a presentation from Phil Dodd, Executive Director of Keystone Youth and Family Services, Children's Mental Health Services. The update for Council was informative and concerning. Keystone serves youth from ages 0 to 17. They have 15 counseling staff and 30 volunteers who support youth with issues such as eating disorders, anxiety, thoughts of suicide, parents divorcing, trauma, ADHD, and so on. Mr. Dodd shared that over the past couple of years, the need for this support has doubled within our youth age group. All services are confidential, free of charge, and available without referral from a doctor. The number to call is 519-371-4773. There are 54 open cases of youth within the Municipality of Meaford receiving counseling support. The City of Owen Sound has just completed its official plan update, which was approved last Thursday by County Council. What I found particularly interesting was that in 2019, when the Grey County official plan was last reviewed, the 2 main concerns were housing and transportation. Owen Sound stated that climate change was the most concerning element realized from their public engagement. The city will be hiring a staff member to work on climate change initiatives. It'll be interesting to see what the priorities of our own update are as that process progresses. Okay, the Grey County Homelessness Enumeration Report was presented. The definition of homelessness for the purposes of this report is anyone identifying as not having accommodation for 6 months out of the past 12. People are considered to be chronically homeless if they're in that situation. The chronically homeless could be sleeping rough, couch surfing, or self-funding a motel room. The pandemic certainly has amplified the numbers of people who are homeless locally. A by name list has been created. The list names people who are most in need. A survey was conducted where 142 homeless individuals were interviewed wherever they are. 74 people were determined to be chronically homeless. 27 were completely unsheltered. The level of morbidity, which is additional aspects such as physical limitations, mental health concerns, learning disabilities, and substance addictions, was also determined. People found to have 2 or 3 determinants of morbidity as well as being homeless became priorities on the by name list. Okay. A notice of motion was brought forward by Councillor Mackey to create a mental health task force at Grey County. In the warden's inaugural address, he spoke to his desire to focus on mental health. So we'll look forward to that discussion at our next county meeting. And over to you, Your Worship, if you wanted to add anything.
So that was very disturbing presentations that we heard at County Council. So it was good to know that. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Is there anyone else that has something to report since our committee meetings have been kind of put on hold for the moment? I guess that's it. So could I have a motion, please, to move out of committee of the whole? Councillor Bartley, Councillor Bell, thank you. At 5:45. And we'll move into, are there any notices of motion? Councillor Kentner.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have 2. First, I'll present a motion to require directions from all former councils be debated in the first quarter of the first year of each term to either renew or terminate the direction. And the second, I will be presenting a motion of support for the Association of Municipalities of Ontario's recommendation regarding joint and several liability, which is to align municipal liability with the proportionate responsibility for incidents and also capping awards.
Thank you for that. And there are no motions for decision, so we'll move into adoption of the minutes, the council meeting of December 13th, 2021. I'll put that on the table, please. A mover and a seconder, Councillor Greenfield, Councillor Bartley. Thank you. Any comments or questions on that? All in favor? And that is carried. The closed meeting of December 13th. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Bartley and Deputy Mayor, thank you. If there are any questions or comments, we'll have to go into close for that. Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Anything on the communications file that needs to be discussed? Councillor Kentner?
Thank you. Just in his January 6th letter, re-bills 13 and 276, the Minister, Stephen Clark, stressed the need to speed up the development of different types of housing projects in municipalities. And I have a question for Mr. Armstrong, if he's still available there. And I think I know the answer, but I wonder whether you think any of the streamlining that's allowed by these 2 bills would help us to develop more attainable housing faster. And if so, of course, are we building that into our official plan review?
First off, the last part of the question, any changes to legislation absolutely get incorporated into our official plan as the most up-to-date policies applicable on the go forward. And I think probably some of the issues presented would maybe help other municipalities proceed, but we haven't had those same challenges. But we would be looking at that as we go forward. So as it relates to affordable types of housing.
Thank you for that, Rob, and thanks for the question, Councillor Kentner. Is there anything on the correspondence list that anyone wish to pull? I see none. So that brings us to item 13 on our agenda. We have completed the business before us. And with that, I will thank you all for participating, for your comments, for your enthusiasm, for reaching this budget and all of the business of this municipality today. Thank you for that. Thank you to staff for your perseverance and for all of the hard work that you've done in preparing the budget that we've discussed today. It is greatly appreciated, as has been commented before. It really was a very, very tightly woven budget that you prepared, and not much wiggle room in there at all. So thank you all again for participating, and good night to you all. I declare this meeting adjourned. Be well, everyone. Bye.